All right, so ready to dive into another fascinating story.
Absolutely. Always up for a deep dive.
This time, we're taking a look at Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
A fascinating figure.
Definitely, and we're going to explore his life through this new biopic, Main Atal Hoon.
Oh, interesting. A biopic.
Yeah, and this is a deep dive that's really perfect for anyone who's interested in history,
Of course.
politics, especially Indian
Politics,
politics,
great.
or just wants to get to know this really influential world leader.
Makes sense.
So we're going to uncover some key moments
Okay.
from his life and his career,
Yay.
and also kind of explore like what the movie gets right and what it might get wrong about him.
Oh, I like that angle. Always interesting to see how these biopics handle things.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of the movie, it looks like they focus on some pretty major events, like
Right.
the Kargil War
Yes,
and the Pokhran nuclear tests.
exactly. Those are kind of front and center in the
Yeah.
review we saw, and for those who might not, be super familiar with Indian history,
It's a vast and complex history.
it is. It is. Could you maybe give us a little bit of context on those events
Sure.
and why they were so significant, especially for India?
Absolutely. So the Kargil War, that was back in 1999. It was this high-stakes conflict
Hmm.
between India and Pakistan. And it took place in this really, treacherous region,
Okay.
the disputed Kashmir region up in the Himalayas.
Wow.
Yeah, imagine like a conflict fought in these icy heights.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a really tense time, not just for the region,
Right.
but for the whole world.
I bet.
Because, there was this possibility, this looming threat of a nuclear confrontation.
Okay.
And Vartayi's leadership during this time
Yeah.
was absolutely crucial.
So how did he handle that situation?
Well, he adopted a very firm stance
Okay.
against the Pakistani incursion.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he was pursuing diplomatic channels to try and de-escalate the situation.
So playing both sides, trying to keep things under control.
Exactly.
Wow.
It was a delicate balancing act. And, his decisions during this time had a really lasting impact
I can imagine.
on India-Pakistan relations. They really shaped the dynamics in that whole region for years to come.
It's like one person's decisions can have these ripple effects that last for years and years.
Absolutely, and that's part of what makes Vajpayee so fascinating to study.
Absolutely.
And then, on top of that, we have the Pokhran nuclear tests
Right.
back in 1998.
Mm.
And, this basically announced to the world that India
Yeah.
was a nuclear power.
Oh, wow.
And that sent, shockwaves across the globe.
I can imagine.
Really, really altered the balance of power
Mm.
in South Asia.
Right. So a major move.
A huge move. And it was intensely debated, of course.
Oh, yeah. I bet.
You had supporters arguing that, India needed this for its security, to protect itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had critics who were, understandably concerned about a regional arms race.
Like, what if this sets everyone off?
Exactly,
Yeah.
But Vajpayee stood firm in his belief
Okay.
that this was a necessary step
Mm-hmm.
for India's strategic autonomy.
Like, we need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet.
Exactly. To make our own decisions, to chart our own course.
It's really fascinating to think about the weight of those decisions,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like the long-term implications.
It wasn't just about India.
Right. It extended way beyond India's borders.
The whole world was watching.
Absolutely. So the movie's trying to grapple with all of this.
Yeah, how do you fit all of that into a single film?
Exactly. And it seems like from the reviews we saw
Yeah.
that it's kind of a mixed bag. Some critics loved it, some didn't.
It's always tough with biopics.
It is.
Uh,
What are the critics, what are they saying specifically?
Well, the review we have, it highlights the challenge
Mhm.
of trying to compress a life as complex and multifaceted as Vajpayee's
Oh, yeah.
into just one movie.
Yeah, how do you choose what to include and what to leave out?
Exactly. It's like, where do you even begin? And some critics felt that, the movie lacked the depth
Okay.
and the grandeur to really do justice to his legacy.
It's a tall order for sure.
It is. It is. There were also concerns about pacing,
Oh, okay.
the emotional impact,
Yeah.
and whether it truly captures like the essence of the man.
Right.
Beyond just listing the historical events.
Like you want to get to know the person, not just the politician.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, this kind of raises a bigger question about biographical films in general.
Hmm.
Like, how do you balance historical accuracy
Hmm.
with cinematic storytelling, and where do you draw the line?
It's almost like, are you asking, is it more important to be historically precise
Mm.
or to be emotionally resonant?
Yeah.
And to find that balance, I imagine, is so challenging for any filmmaker.
It's a tightrope walk.
It really is. It really is. But speaking of drawing attention, the review does mention Pankaj Tripathi,
Oh,
who
yes.
portrays Vajpayee, and he's really a remarkable actor.
He's incredibly talented.
He is. He is. Could you tell us a bit more about his career
Sure.
and why his casting is so interesting, especially in this context?
Yeah, so Pankaj Tripathi, he's known for his incredible range.
Oh.
He can go from playing, a comedic character that makes you laugh out loud
Oh.
to portraying like a hardened criminal
Wow.
with this chilling intensity.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
He really disappears into his roles.
Yeah.
So casting him as Vajpayee, who is known for his charisma
Yeah.
and his eloquence, it suggests that they're really trying to delve into like the human side of this leader.
Interesting.
It's not just about recreating, historical speeches.
Right.
It's about exploring, the man behind the public persona,
Right.
his struggles, his motivations, his complexities.
That's really fascinating. So it's not just a historical reenactment.
And at all.
It's trying to really get into his head.
To understand what made him tick.
Yeah, to see him as a fully realized person.
Exactly.
That makes his performance something I definitely want to see.
Me too.
It's that element of human connection that can really make a historical figure come alive.
You start to feel like you understand them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of connections, the review also briefly mentioned the supporting cast
Right.
and the music,
Oh, the music.
especially songs like Desh Pay
Okay.
and Hindu Tan Man.
Yeah, those are quite evocative titles.
They are, and I'm curious about the role of music in Indian cinema in general.
Oh, it's huge.
Okay,
Music is so central to Indian films.
so how would you say these particular songs, like how might they fit into the film's narrative?
Well, music in Indian cinema, it's not just background scoring.
Okay,
It's woven into the storytelling itself.
interesting.
It sets the mood, it underscores emotions,
Okay,
and it often acts as a narrative device,
Yeah.
to foreshadow events or to reveal a character's motivations.
like it's part of the storytelling language.
Exactly. And so Desh Pay, which means nation first,
Oh, okay.
and Hindu Tan Man, which reflects on the essence of Indian identity.
Mhm.
Those clearly align with the film's likely patriotic tone.
Right.
It seems like the filmmakers are really using music
Yeah.
to emphasize Vajpayee's deep love for his nation and his commitment to his people.
It's like they're creating a whole soundscape
Yeah,
to reflect his worldview.
exactly.
That's really neat how they use these different elements.
Yeah, it adds so many layers to the experience.
Absolutely. And it's really convenient that Main Atal Hoon is available on ZE5.
Oh, that's right.
So it's readily accessible for anyone who wants to watch it.
Streaming has really changed things, hasn't
It
it?
really has. It really has.
Wow.
I mean, the accessibility of these streaming platforms,
Mm-hmm.
it's changing how we engage with historical content.
Absolutely.
How would you say it's changing things?
Well, platforms like ZEE5,
Yeah.
they're really democratizing
Okay.
access to these historical narratives.
Interesting.
You don't have to rely solely on textbooks or documentaries anymore.
Yeah, it's right there at your fingertips.
Exactly. And biopics, even with, their inherent artistic liberties,
Right.
can offer a more engaging
Sure.
and emotionally resonant way
Interesting.
to experience
I
history.
can see that.
It's an opportunity to step into the shoes of those who shaped our world,
Right.
to understand their motivations. Okay.
And to connect with their humanity.
It's like history becomes less of a distant past
Yeah.
and more of a living story.
It comes alive.
Yeah, exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what
Yeah.
are your final thoughts? I mean, the film, it might have its shortcomings,
Sure.
but it still seems to offer some valuable insight into the life of a remarkable leader.
I agree. Main Atal Hoon, while it's not a perfect historical account,
Sure.
it's a starting point.
Okay.
It's a way to spark curiosity, to encourage people to delve deeper into Vajpayee's legacy,
Right.
and maybe even to challenge ourselves, to reconsider
Okay.
our own understanding of history.
That's a great point. And with that, we'll leave you, our listener, with a thought-provoking question.
Right.
How do biographical films, despite their, their limitations, how do they shape our perception of history?
That's a good one.
And the people who shaped it, worth thinking about.
Yeah, and we encourage you to check out Main Atal Hoon on ZE5.
It's easy to find.
It is, and draw your own conclusions.
Form your own opinions.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.